the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice right here, right now. My name is Michael Evans, and I will be your host this morning. I appreciate you joining with us. I hope that a number of you are catching it live on our website. I see that some Lakewood is out there. I think that's in Lakewood, Washington. Buxton, Maine. That's a new one for us. Zanesville, Fort Wayne. I see folks out there, of course, from Marshfield and West Plains, of course. Huntington, Fort Walton Beach. I see Chicago out there, among others. Thanks very much for riding with us this morning. I appreciate your joining with us. We, as you know, broadcast this program live every morning from 8 to 10 Central. And then, of course, we move on to a rebroadcast from midnight to 2 a.m. on Rooster Radio, which is 99.3 Big Country, 99, based out of Houston, Missouri. We have a listen line, which is beneficial to those of you that want to be able to basically catch the show at your own time and leisure. You can call that phone number at any time and get radio over your phone. Great idea, easy to use. Simply dial 415-325-0725. That's 415-325-0725. I get a lot of email from you folks. I'm always happy to hear from you. You can write me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. We're going to cover 4 separate topics this morning, and I want to talk a little bit about the theme of how things have kind of become out of control, if you will. We have a number of different respective areas that we are experiencing an overabundance, shall we say, of government overreach. Now, in general, we all know that it's, broadly propagated across the spectrum. We've got an enormous amount of federal abuse and, frankly, intervention in our day in and day out lives that's completely unnecessary. But I was reminded, I saw an article this morning about the Obamacare and the issue of, or I should say a comment, really, that was posted out there by an author in reference to Obamacare. And, I was a little disturbed by it because he was talking about the fact that, the media is now covering the fact that we made all these changes so that we could generate, 4 million people to be covered. And it really bothered me because my concern with that is, why is it that the media is talking about it in a negative fashion now? In other words, where were they when we needed them? Curiously, this journalistic community is now asking these questions, but they weren't there when we needed them. The truth is that they had an obligation to do the right thing by us back before this thing got out of control, and i.e. 2010, when they were first trying to pass it. Why didn't they expose the Democratic scam on America in reference to that? Why didn't they tell us about that? Because, they should have told us back then that it was going to be a problem. So I'm going to take a stab at answering him. And here's what I come up with. The answer is, where were you when it was all done? And why is the media only now doing this? All of this by the government to insure 4.2 million people. Well, here's my response. We didn't do it to overhaul the entire system and change a $2.6 trillion industry to cover 4.2 million people. You, meaning the media, You, meaning Congress. You, meaning government. You overhauled this system. And you did so to ensure that 100% access was gained to 100% of Americans' lives, their finances, their health, their information, their medical history, and their data. And that you gained a foot in the door to the family. Because the goal, of course, of government is never to just simply have control of all that information. You want control of the actual family unit. You opened the door to propagandize 315 million Americans. You allowed that propaganda and participated actively in it. You conspired to drain Americans of their financial resources while you used them as guinea pigs for the pharma-tyrants to test every heinous thing upon us while they enriched themselves. You, the media, you, Congress, you, the executive, you, the judiciary, you thought it was a good idea for Homeland Security to gather data through this system that the FBI and the NSA couldn't get because of constitutional prohibitions. You thought it was a good idea for the IRS to be put in charge as the authoritative enforcer. You thought it would be neat to use taxpayer money to cover insurance companies for their losses. And worst of all, you thought that this would further your opinion that single-payer, universal, government-issued health care would finally become a reality if only those simpletons and the peasantry out there would accept the interim step of Obamacare. The truth is, you were the ones who betrayed us. Our second topic is going to be I'm sorry, not the DOJ. Our second topic this morning is going to be the issue of how we have, for all intents and purposes, and my computer is just having fits and kittens over here. I am completely out of memory. How all three branches of the government are currently colluding in this tyranny. In other words, we have the courts approving of what the Congress and the executive are doing. We have the Congress who is powerless in the face of an executive overreach to slow down or stop it. We have an executive which is completely and obviously out of control and encouraging non-authorized, unaccountable, nameless, faceless, illegal agencies to abuse Americans. Our third segment will be the EPA, the ATF, and the DHS. Three of these representative agencies. And what happens when these agencies run amok? And we're going to use specific stories to talk about that. And then our fourth segment will be Bill Gates and how he's defending his investment in Common Core. You see, Bill Gates believes that he knows better than you what's necessary. Not for the country, not what's in the best interest of America, not what's in the best interest of your children's educational needs, nor the family unit. He thinks he knows what's best for business, so that automatons and robotic individuals can be created. Not that they have the intelligence and the creativity that Americans and people around the world are born with and bred with and given by their Creator to improve themselves, to seek, to learn, to educate those around them and themselves. Not to strive to be better, just to maybe make sure that they can read a manual, push the right buttons. The truth is, when people like Gates and many others in his ilk, and I include Soros in that, and the Koch brothers, and all of these multi-zillionaire groups and individuals, they get tired, quite frankly, of playing in business. They've conquered business. They've manipulated the system to its maximum stretch. They've pushed the edges of the envelope as far as it can be pushed. And now that they've grown bored with the child's play of industry and business and buying and selling a Congress, they apply their resources, which are formidable. they apply their contacts and those that they've bought and paid for in legislative positions to mold a world in the shape that they believe it should be molded. With all due respect, I don't think I want Bill Gates determining what's in the best interest of me, nor my family, nor my children. I don't want him determining what's in the best interest of our nation. You didn't elect him. I didn't elect him. So how is it that he gets to have a stranglehold in the determination of what's in the best interests of our children? I thought so. So let's just talk about this Obamacare thing for a moment. You know, Curl asks, and he's the author of this, it's Joseph Curl in the Washington Times. And I'm not pointing my finger at him, you know, in a persecutorial manner. I am pointing my finger at the media in general, the mainstream media, and the six companies that basically, for all intents and purposes, control everything that you see and read and hear and learn and educate yourself with and your family. And he asked the question, we overhauled U.S. healthcare to insure 4.2 million people? He starts out with the number bounced around for years, 46 million. Obama said in August of 2009, I don't have to explain to you that nearly 46 million Americans don't have health insurance coverage today. In the wealthiest nation on earth, 46 million of our fellow citizens have no coverage. And to that opening gambit, I reply, well, with all due respect, you knew that 46 million was not a fair and accurate number back then. Why didn't you dispute it? Why didn't you point out the fact that 12 million of those were illegal aliens in the first place? Why didn't you dispute the fact that a good significant portion of those people didn't actually want insurance? That they were younger individuals within the country who felt that insurance wasn't necessary for them because they were young and they were invincible, indestructible. Why didn't you mention that at least 1 million of those people are individuals in the country who have determined that they don't really need health insurance, that they're willing to go it alone and pay for what they need as, when, and if, and where they need it? Why didn't you point out that at some point in time, it was inappropriate to force an individual single man to purchase maternity coverage and, well, baby care? The truth of the matter is, you had years, the media, to expose the fraud of what this really was. You had years to point out the fact that they were building a data hub that would be utilized as a major superhighway to redistribute the knowledge and the education, the information, the finances, the medical research, the medical information, the medical history of every single American. You had years to point out that the real purpose behind all of this was not so that we could cover 4.46 million people, but that the government would have a touch point, a touchstone point in every single individual human being on the continental United States and its territories. That was the real goal. It had nothing to do with covering 4.6 million or 46 million people. Obama could not care less. Congress could not care less about 46 million Americans. They're collateral. Damage when necessary. The truth of this is that you all had plenty of time to educate and inform the American people. Your job should have been to expose this for the fraud that it was. And you failed miserably. And now we've revamped our entire healthcare system. We've given the Obama administration and any subsequent administrations, irrespective of what kind of tyrannical ends they have, a complete and utter chain connected permanently in the lives of every American. A series of reins, an ability to grasp a hold of any individual because all of us will touch the healthcare system at some point in our lives, whether at birth or whether through injury or whether through sickness or whether through accident. All of us have to be in contact with a health system. And you allowed it. The truth is that only 4.2 million have signed up. But we already know that 6.5 million lost their insurance. So the obvious question is, if we've only covered 4.2 and we knocked 6 out of the game, we're at a net loss of some 2-point-some-odd million people. Even under the best scenario that the Obama administration can muster of hitting a 5 million target, we've knocked 1.5 million people out of insurance, adding them to the alleged number of 46 million that originally began with, which is 47.5 million. Now, I ask you to justify for me how any of that makes sense. I ask you to draw us a rational, conceptual idea of what the benefit is of taking 47.5 million Americans and placing them behind the 8 ball and simultaneously enslaving, and I do mean that, the other 260 million Americans It's completely, utterly absurd. The truth is, this is nothing more than another step, and a major one, admittedly, in the overall principle of expanding and extending the federal government's reach into every aspect of our daily lives. That was not what we envisioned as a nation. That was not the principle under which this nation was designed, built, geared. The truth is that all of these things point to one thing: a complete level of despotism in our government. I'm reminded of Thomas Jefferson and a statement he made, which was that, quote, an elective despotism was not the government we fought for, but one which should not only be founded on true free principles, but in which the powers of government should be so divided and balanced among general bodies of magistracy as that no one could transcend their legal limits without effectually being checked and restrained by the others. You show me where the check and the restraint is. It surely is not on the side of the courts, and it surely is not on the side of Congress. We have a system which was passed by one half of an already corrupt duopoly system. Does that mean that the Republicans represented America? Heck no. It means that they failed to protect us. It means they failed to educate us because they live in some little bubble where they thought, you know, this isn't a good thing, but ultimately we'll be safe from it ourselves. And let me tell you, it'll give us so much fodder, we'll win back the House and the Senate. That's all they really care about. Do you think they really care about you? Hardly. The sad truth is that all of this points to one thing: a federal government intent on usurping and placing states as figureheads, if at best, if even that, where the federal government determines the rules and administrative agencies run the day. They rule the roost. Like a group of drill sergeants, they march around from barracks to barracks, telling the raw recruits what to do, with painful results for those who fail to follow. I'm disgusted by what I see going on around us. And I don't understand why America does not rise up and defend itself against a clear and present danger to the very republic that has given us the right to sit here and speak out. Not that government gave us those rights, but they were outlined for us, and we were educated in a time when education mattered to the true extent of the value of those liberties and freedoms, and our responsibility to protect and defend them. Excuse me. We failed as a nation, as individuals, as watchdogs of our republic. We collectively have failed. And now we've reached a point in which it's unlikely that we'll be able to resolve this in a peaceful manner. You get the government, ladies and gentlemen, that you ask for. You get the government that you allow. And the one we've gotten is certainly not in our best interest. It is now in a position to become our master. We're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to tackle the second topic, which is when all three branches are colluding in tyranny. And apparently, no one who is intellectually honest, no one who's cognizant of the rule of law can deny that that's the case. We'll be right back.